And now for our feature presentation.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
He's going to go into the end zone.
Puts it up. Yes! There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
American Pharoah, it's finally the one. American Pharoah has won the Triple Crown.
And Barnes hits right high. It's a dig. It is out of here. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Unbelievable! A home run for Gibson, and the Dodgers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
Here are your hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, driven by our friends at Stokes Volkswagen. Visit stokesvw.com. August the 13th, this year that has been crammed into the last 3 days of this week is nearing an end, Darren. It has been a very busy couple of days, and I don't think today is going to be any less, and for that matter, probably tomorrow, or even maybe for next week, and we'll tell you why here in just a little bit. But that is Darren Goldwater to my left. I am Jamie Bradford. We're here till 2 o'clock this afternoon. The JB and Goldwater Show available on all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater. You can watch on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope, and you can listen on the Podbean app for free. JBandGoldwaterShow.com, JBandGoldwaterShow.com. Phone lines, text lines, they're the same, 843-321-8893. If you're watching or listening right now and you'd like to be a part of our program, 843 what is
321
321
8893
843-321-8893. All right.
It gets confusing after a while.
I know. We do have Corey McCartney today at 12:30. In Atlanta, obviously, we will talk some football with Corey, but we'll also, of course, talk baseball. It's been a football-driven week around here, but there's plenty going on in Major League Baseball, and we're going to fuss and discuss with one of the best coming up in about 27, 28 minutes or so here on our program. Brian Levinson, he's going to join us at 1 o'clock today. Now, many of you probably don't know who he is. Darren does quite well. He's about to release a new book. This is going to be 2 of the last 3 days this week. We've had somebody releasing a new book, and both of these books are really good. That was David Caravello, who joined us on Tuesday, releasing Hidden History of Gamecocks Football. But this book, Darren, is much more of a how to be successful in sports and in business, I guess, for that matter. The name of this book is
Shift Your Mind.
Shift Your Mind. And here's the thing: it talks about, what the kind of the do's and don'ts, but the do's and don'ts of those, if that makes sense.
It's how preparation meets success. Right?
Yeah.
How the very successful people prepare in a very diligent and I guess you could say anal type of way, but then once you prepare that way, it gets you to a point of competition in the sports sense where you can relax and kind of let things flow because you know that you are prepared on the back end. So he's a mental performance coach, and he has written this book.
And obviously we're going to tie that into what's going on today with football and a lot of these other sports that are being postponed or canceled. What would a mental performance coach do today? I mean, how would you respond to many of these athletes who are having their respective sports slip right through their fingers for whatever amount of time that may be, whether it's just a semester or a full year or maybe forever in the case of some of these who might be seniors and they're never going to see the field or the court or whatever it is again. So that's going to be a really cool conversation I think you'll like. Excuse me, coming up at 1 o'clock this afternoon. And then Scott Glaze at 1:30. He's our golf pro out at Stono Ferry. And, of course, Scott will react to what we saw last week at the PGA Championship. And we'll, of course, look forward in golf to this weekend and beyond with Scotty. So all of that, plus we've got to get into this proposal, I guess, that's been introduced from the United States Senate. We'll talk about that. And there's, I don't know that any of that is on the front burner, but it's on the burner. So we'll get into that. It's been released this morning. The ACC commissioner search is ongoing, and it could be zeroing in on Clemson University, as there are names that are in consideration to take over for John Swofford in 2021. So we'll get to that in just a little while.
Do you think Swofford's ready to be done? I
think so. I think he wishes he announced this the year before.
Absolutely.
I know Jim Delaney is happy he did up in the Big Ten. The NCAA, they've their medical officer has spoken. There's some info to get out there. Clemson, by the way, is practicing in full pads today, folks. So we're going to get to that. Some numbers to get out from the Alabama student system, Notre Dame. Really good numbers. Want to make sure we tell you about. Ross Bjork has spoken. What about the SEC schedules? That's all I had here on our program. But we'll lead it off with Jeff Brom. And by the way, we do have the Florida State story. We're going to get to that here in just a little bit as well. But let's lead it off, Darren, with Jeff Brom. And this morning, there's been a 2021 spring football proposal that has been circulating that was written at the fingertips of Jeff Brom. And he did speak on this, so I think it's probably proper to allow you to hear a little bit of what he had to say. And this is only about a minute and a half long. And at the conclusion of this, Darren and I we'll kind of give you what the basic structure looks like. But here's Jeff Brom in this 2021 spring proposal if you haven't heard about it just yet.
Maybe you start March 1st and you have an 8-game season that ends at the end of April. Maybe you have an 8-team playoff to make it exciting that doesn't go beyond Memorial Day weekend. And then maybe you give yourself the players the entire summer off from workouts. Right now, people talk about, that can't happen. We play a season, we go to a bowl, and then basically right after the bowl, a couple weeks later, we're starting training already. There's not a whole lot of time off that we have now. We go through spring practice, we tackle, we scrimmage, we have a spring game. So to me, it's possible. And then maybe you bump back the start of the next season to October 1st, and maybe just have a 10-game season, continued with an 8-team playoff to have some excitement. And then possibly after that, maybe don't have spring practice the following year to allow more time. So to me, there's a lot of things and discussions that need to happen to give that an opportunity and a chance to happen. Then also maybe you have fans in the stands that give excitement to the game of football. That's really what college football is all about. I mean, to be honest with you, there probably weren't a whole lot of teams excited to go play Penn State in a stadium where no one was in there. So I think we need to look into it. I'm totally for trying to make that work, and I'm hopeful that our entire conference, and when it's all said and done, everyone involved can find a way to play football in the spring, especially if we really want to play football and give our seniors a chance to play football.
All right, so there's a lot of ways. Jeff Brom, head coach at Purdue. There's a lot of ways to kind of cut this down. First of all, I like optimism. So when Jeff Brom's going to be optimistic and Darren push out something that is, believe it or not, much more of anything than we've seen this entire year.
Yeah, it's amazing. He sits down and he types this thing out and
in a day.
And it feels like the conferences are like, how do we react now?
Yeah, probably should have thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like optimism. Well, here's kind of what the way that this sets up. Let me just kind of explain this. Spring, fall. 8 games in the spring, 10 in the fall. Start Saturday, February 27th in the spring. End Saturday, April 17th. That's when the games would begin. 2-week training camp, which would begin January 16th and conclude January 29th. And that is a 16-hour week, 4 days a week, 8 hours of strength and conditioning, 4 hours of walkthroughs, 4 hours of meetings. And then following that January 29th date, it would move to January 30th through February the 26th, almost a full month, 4 weeks of training camp. 2 days off per week, which would be mandatory, and a maximum of 2 practices in full pads during those weeks. And then the games would start. No bye week and a 2-week preparation before postseason begins. And then he's got potentially a 16 playoff in here with the Power 5 conference champions plus a wild card, and then the top 2 seeds have a first round bye. So you'd have seeds 3 through 6, 3, 4, 5, 6 playing a couple of games, and then you got the top 2 seeds getting a bye there, and then there's a bunch of other stuff in there. If you go to our Twitter pages, you can find this certainly, and then the fall you would actually get the summer off. And then the fall would begin on October the 2nd with a similar setup to that as far as training camp and things of that nature. So, I probably don't need to go a whole lot further than that because none of this is reality right now. It's just an optimistic look at this. But my first, so I had a couple of thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Right? So here's my first thought. Well, right now you've got 3 Power 5s playing in the fall, and nobody has said that they're canceled, so we're to assume that they're playing this fall until someone says they're not playing this fall. So if they play in the fall, why the hell are they going to turn around and play in the spring?
Well, they're not.
They're not going to do that. So that will squash that whole playoff structure that he's talking about. It won't squash the other stuff.
Well, no, I mean, he's amazingly enough, somebody associated with NCAA football is putting out a plan in the event that those other 3 conferences don't play.
Right. And I think that was the purpose of that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Because it's not feasible at all to have some teams play in the fall and then be part of a spring season. That can't it's tough enough for just a spring season to happen. I mean, the feasibility of what he's saying is pretty challenging. I don't know if it's actually something that can be accomplished, but plans can be altered. At least this is a draft of, hey, here's a plan in case.
If we have to do this could work.
Yeah.
And I think there's some certainly that like this. My other question with this, though, is if these 3 Power 5s and maybe others, like Conference USA or whoever, are able to play this fall, and then obviously they would not be playing in the spring, whereas let's just say, hypothetically speaking, it's possible for these other schools who are going to try to play in the spring to go ahead and do it. So you'd have, 60 teams or something playing in the fall and then whatever amount of teams playing in the spring. My question would be, fast forward to fall of 2021, under this proposal, it's, okay, we got 8 in the spring and 10 in the fall. Does that mean that the teams that played this fall aren't going to be allowed to play a full 12-game schedule next fall? Because that wouldn't, to me, be fair to the teams that played this fall. So you'd have a little bit of an issue there where you've got the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 and whomever else saying, look, we played 10 games in the fall. We're back to normal here in 2021. We're playing 12 games. I don't care what y'all want to do, but this is what we're doing.
Yes.
So, I think we can speak pretty eloquently on this, Darren. Greg Sankey and Bob Bowlesby and whoever's going to replace John Swafford would tell them to go kick rocks when it comes. You're not going to tell me I'm not going to play 12 games next fall, so we're going to do it.
Again, that all comes down to whether or not the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 actually do play.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if they play, it's a moot point. If they don't play, then maybe this is back on the table. But at least there's some forward thinking. I don't know, like I said, I don't know how likely a spring season would be at the FBS level. There are hurdles, huge ones,
enormous,
that you can navigate through. Roger Goodell can change the NFL draft. He can move some dates around, but to change the way things have been done in the NFL for decades, it's going to be really, really hard. I think the FCS could do it because there aren't as many prospects. And if some prospects don't want to play in the spring, so be it. But I would like to see the FBS try. I don't know how possible it is.
Yeah, there's no telling. I mean, obviously opt-outs will be there again for different reasons. Hey, look, I'm going to the NFL, and there's no reason for me to do this. I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to. But we're dealing with opt-outs right now, so that's not anything that we haven't discussed. And then there's a crowd, out there, and there are legitimate voices speaking on this from both angles. And I generally try to listen to the players more when it comes to this angle of things, which is what they're talking about, player safety. Like Greg McElroy said, well, now wait a second. Yeah, everybody's talking about player safety. and you're going to shove out minimum of 18 games, on our guys next year, could be 22 games. That's not safety. So, I see both sides of this. I do. I understand that angle of it and saying, look, y'all have been reluctant to expand the daggone playoff, okay? You didn't want – Clemson playing 15 games and LSU, oh, my God, they played 15 games. People were like, that's too many games. Well, it wasn't. So you're asking them to play 3 more games with like 3 more months added into this. Well, a lot more months added into this, but 3 more months basically where you could be off and just kind of non-mandatory workouts. So I think that's very doable. So I would want a little bit more information on that, because we've never seen that either. So we've never seen 18 to 20 games, Darren, 18, 19 games, whatever it would be for the majority of teams out there in a calendar year like that. So that would be a difficult decision. I think if you ask the common fan, they'd probably be fine with it. Hey, look, they might argue with you. Look, if you're going to argue health and safety, then I'm going to argue health and safety too, and I can understand that. But the common fan right now doesn't really matter. What matters are the facts. And so, would you like to see football in the spring and the fall? I think most people would probably say you would. Is it safely possible? I think you probably have another 50-50 split. There'd probably be a bunch of players saying, I'd rather do that in spring practice. And then you have a bunch of players saying, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's hard. So. The health and safety crowd, the guy, everyone who's saying, as it relates to COVID, do things for the right reasons for the kids themselves, health and safety. If you then say spring football rolls right into fall football, it's like, well, yeah, are we really talking health and safety, or are we talking dollars and cents here? Yeah. 12:15, go grab yourself a drink at any of the 3 Dog and Duck locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and the new one out on Clements Ferry. They've got a really nice Revelry beer, a local beer right now. It's a pale ale. I forget the name of it, but go try it.
Fantastic. And they have
excellent wings.
They have great wings. I keep seeing this. Here's this college football map, by the way. That's have you seen this college football map that's popped out?
Which one?
It has every state, and there's red, green, yellow, and gray. And the gray is where there are no FBS programs.
Okay.
The green is all FBS schools are playing in the state. The red is no FBS schools are playing in the state, and the yellow is some. And that's where people are going, well, this doesn't make any sense, because you've got Iowa, you've got Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, Delaware, Utah.
Those are the ones with some.
They have schools playing, and then there's schools in the same state that aren't playing. Again, it's we say that, but you got to look a little bit deeper, turn the screws a little bit, and get in there. But it is a funny map to look at. You're like, so you're telling me that Indiana can't play?
Yeah,
but Notre Dame can play.
And Iowa and Iowa State, and Pittsburgh and Penn State. They're 2.5 hours away from each other.
Right. Yeah, it's not making sense to people, but you got to get below the surface to understand why some of these decisions are being made. And that's why we'll go down to Tallahassee, Florida to get to story number 2 to lead off our program today. And this is, I don't know where this is going to go. I think, Darren, want more information on this. But this is Warren Thompson, who's a wide receiver at Florida State, who has penned a letter. And I'm going to read that letter. Do you have the letter up?
I didn't put the whole letter up, but I put up his Twitter page, which shows that both DJ Matthews and also Tamarian Terry have backed him on this.
Okay.
They have tweeted support, and he has retweeted their support. There is also a faction of FSU players saying this is nonsense.
Right.
And there is a soundbite that we can get to as well from Mike Norvell. Darren Stoltzfus, who used to be in this market, now he's down in Florida. He got Norvell to comment on this, but you can read the letter first.
Yeah, this is, again, Warren Thompson, wide receiver at Florida State. He says, Dear Seminole family, being a student-athlete is difficult during this time, and the proper leadership regarding these problems does not exist. During this entire week of camp, I have been lied to multiple times about the conditions of other players' health as well as mine. It has been shown to myself and the rest that our leadership is based off of an I mentality, with them only worried about their own future rather than their own athletes. I've been ridiculed about speaking up regarding this issue, and it needs to be addressed for myself to safely continue the season. I myself am an introvert, meaning my days go from being at the football facilities and back home day by day. I have done my best to take the proper precautions for myself and my teammates to try and ensure a healthy environment during these radical times. I want to play for Florida State University and have a great season for myself and our supporters. The lies from our leaders have backed myself into the corner, putting my overall well-being in jeopardy. The neglect to respond to this issue is very concerning and why I've drawn attention to it. I've put 1,000% into this team and my own craft. I've got too much to prove to the world, and this problem is growing greater, potentially preventing that from happening because I've spoken up. Warren Thompson. Darren Stoltzfus, you mentioned, actually has a response from Mike Norvell on this.
He does.
So, by the way, Mike Norvell's had I'm not going to call it tumultuous, but he's had a couple of issues since he's been hired, and you probably need to look a little bit deeper into that too, because, again, you've got players saying this, you got players saying that, so you never really know the true story. But here's what Mike Norvell had to say.
Those are conversations that, obviously, like I said, I'm disappointed to what I've heard that was said, but at the end of the day, there will be follow-up conversations to get a better understanding. And so I go to work every single day. I live my life every single day to a certain standard. And I absolutely feel very confident in the way that we're doing things, the way that we're doing things as a coaching staff, as a university, as a program. It's, like I said, it's disappointing that some of the things that are said or were put out there. But once again, I mean, if everybody has a right to make a statement, and that's what a statement was made.
So my thought on that, and I apologize for not having the video available. I tried, but that's from Darren Stoltzfus. If you see the video, and I think it comes across in the audio also, Mike Norvell, does not look very comfortable, and he is searching for words, whether it is just to protect himself. It seems like he is. It seems like he's in a corner at the moment. Just the way his body language is, the way he answered that question. I have no idea what's happening, but that was not a very confident response from Mike Norvell.
Yeah, I mean, so, here's the thing. If there is a real issue with this at Florida State where players have concerns and these concerns are not being addressed, they're being ignored, they're being swept under the rug, then you need to close the program down right now and get this figured out. This is because, I stand by what I've believed in for a while. I do think that you are much safer playing football on campus because of the standards, the safety standards and protocols that are in place to keep you safe. But with that last line in it, because of the safety standards and guidelines that are in place to keep you safe. So clearly, if Florida State is crossing the line there and they're not doing the things that they need to do, when you start opening up that can of worms to this word that all of a sudden this week has been enormous, like liability, now you're very liable. You are very, very liable. You need to protect the players first and foremost, and then you're going to need to protect yourself if you're not addressing these situations. Now, you've mentioned that there are players who have said that is just not the case. So, the way that it looks from the outside in for me is this might be the case with some players and might not be the case with other players, which means that they're not all on the same page for whatever reason, which would be the second time I think that this has happened in the last 2 months or 3 months, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
because Marvin Wilson spoke up before.
Yeah, right about that.
So and obviously, what he did when he spoke on social injustice, Marvin Wilson, whenever that was, back in the early summer, I think is when it was, what he did calmed the waters tremendously because it was all addressed and everybody was on the same page and they moved forward, as far as we know. Now, if he's speaking here let's just say that he's just way off base, and none of this is true, which I have a hard time believing that. I'm sure there's some truth in much of this. Or when I say some truth, I'm not trying to discredit him. I'm saying I'm sure there's truth in a lot of this. I just don't know what, because I hadn't heard it yet, really.
It's clear that he feels uncomfortable.
I mean, he's clearly frustrated.
He's frustrated. He's uncomfortable. Others in his receivers room feel the same way.
Right.
So whether it's a full team feeling, which apparently it is not, either way, the communication is not there. And either way, the comfort level of some guys in that locker room is very low.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed.
It
It needs to be fixed, because if FSU starts having real problems, that has real implications for the ACC.
Yeah, the ACC is like, whoa, we've been doing. Look at Clemson is the model right now. I mean, they've been Miami. Miami is a model for success right now. Manny Diaz is like, dude, we live in Miami. My kids could go out to any club they want to every night, the best clubs in the world, and they're not doing it. We've been responsible down here, which is crazy. A little bit different from the 80s Miami Hurricanes. But, I mean, so if there's any doubt with the player, it has to be addressed. If it hasn't been addressed, you need to just hit the pause button and go figure this out. If it has been addressed, you need to say that. Well, clearly Mike Norvell didn't say that. I do know that he has apparently spoken with 3 players, and he's trying to get this worked out and figured out, and whatever the case is. So we'll see what comes from that. And I'm assuming that Warren Thompson is one of those 3 players. If Warren Thompson handled this incorrectly, that needs to be handled. So I mean, it sounds to me like the communication and all of this has been really bad, and he felt like his only outlet was to put it out in public. And basically have the world look down on Florida State and say, or the college football world, look down on Florida State and say, what the hell's going on here? And have people start knocking on doors and go, we got to fix this. So I don't know where this goes. I think that they certainly probably have a little bit of an issue in there. How serious is the issue? Could be very serious. Could be not as serious as it looks. We always need to wait on the facts to come out before we really dive in, Darren. But at the end of the day, this is twice in a few months with Mike Norvell, whom is very respected in the coaching industry, came from Memphis, has a history of success. Memphis football players love this guy. A lot of these coaches love this guy, but maybe it's just one of these things where he stepped in at a time where it's just a little bit over his head, and he doesn't necessarily understand how to corral all of this with 150 kids in his organization. Maybe I don't know what it is, but certainly Florida State has been in the news for the wrong reasons, and they got to get that figured out.
Yeah, I mean that's the bottom line. There's got to be better communication. If things aren't being done the correct way, they have to be fixed. So hopefully, I mean, the NCAA already said they've set up a line for people to call and voice concerns, and they'll look into that. So hopefully this is happening. Hopefully you can get down to Tallahassee and just make sure that it's a couple guys who are uncomfortable and it's not something bigger than that.
Well, and I do want to point out here that what he said in there, although critical of Florida State University and the way it's been handled. And he didn't say specifically Mike Norvell or anything like that. He just said the leaders. So we have to lump them all in together. But what he didn't say, I don't want to play. He actually was in lockstep with what Trevor Lawrence said. I want to play. Mm-hmm. And, I'm doing everything I can. I want to play, but I feel like I have been led in the wrong direction here. So, I'm glad that he wants to play. He's voiced his concerns. That's okay to me. Now, if he was just out there flying off the cuff, Darren, and saying, man, these guys don't know what they're doing, I don't want to play, then don't play. Opt out.
Right.
If you don't feel safe, you can opt out. I get it. But he's expressing that he wants to play. And so I'm okay with that. If you got a kid in any program, no matter where it is, who wants to play but wants to feel comfortable, that's on you. Just like Bob Bowlesby said yesterday at the Big 12, it is on us to make sure that they feel comfortable. And if they don't, we need to address that.
That's right. And so that's got to get fixed down at Florida State.
I'm all for that. All right, Josh Kendall has just tweeted about 7 minutes ago that South Carolina has conducted 7,255 COVID tests with a 3.67 positive rate for students, which is very good.
Yeah.
0.67 positive rate for staff. Only 2% of campus is quarantine or only 2% of campus quarantine or isolation space is being used. That is really, really good. Bravo, South Carolina. That is absolutely fantastic. And I'll give you these numbers, too, before we go to Corey McCartney, or go to break and then get to Corey McCartney. And I did tweet something about this, Darren. I know you don't like when I do it, but I did it anyways because none of the guys that I've called out around here have said a word about it still. And we're 15, 16, 17 hours since this information has been made public. 43,000 plus students, the student body between the entire University of Alabama system, which is in Tuscaloosa, UAB, and Alabama, Montgomery, or there's one other campus they have that is under the Alabama system in the state of Alabama. 30,000 plus there, 13,000 plus in South Bend, Indiana at Notre Dame. 43,000 plus students between those two schools have been tested. 282 positives. 282. That's it. Nothing. I mean, that's just wonderful news for both of those areas. Also, Ross Bjork yesterday in College Station, Texas, said that in Brazos County, which is the location of Texas A&M, there aren't even 300 cases in the whole county, let alone the student body at this point in time. It's wonderful. I mean, that is wonderful. Now, for everything that I'm going to give you, I'm searching for the negative. I'm searching for the bad ones. Now, the worst one I saw was, I think, North Carolina a few weeks ago when a bunch of kids were, I don't know if it was summer or why they were getting there that early. And I think it was like a 10% positivity rate on campus in Chapel Hill, which isn't, that's too high. That has to be, I think we've heard between like 5% and 7.5% to feel really comfortable. So that hopefully has come down. Hopefully it hasn't gone up. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to do my daily, I'm going to do everything I can to find it. I think we'll probably always miss one or two here and there. But every day I'm going to look for the good and the bad and make sure we get them out there to try to give you a landscape. I think that's fair.
That is fair. I mean, good news is good. Good news is stuff you want to hear.
We need good news.
And I mean, even if it's just from 5 minutes of mental clarity, then good news is good.
Good news. Absolutely. It's always good news when Corey's around as well. And it's also good news on Thursdays because buy one, get one half off footlong cheesesteaks at DB's. DB'scheesesteaks.com. Order now. They deliver. The best cheesesteak in Charleston, voted on by you. And don't forget the boardwalk fries at DB's Cheesesteaks. We don't want to forget about Corey. You got to hit a timeout. We'll get to Atlanta when we return.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. Every 2020 Tiguan S, our best-selling third-row SUV, is $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months. But wait, there's more. With $299 down, you can own the Tiguan S for just $299 per month for 72 months at 0% APR. Not just one at this price, over 22 Tiguans to choose from. All $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months and $299 down, $299 per month. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, we are so desperate for used cars that we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not. We need your trade more, so we'll flat out give you more. And don't worry about your credit. Our lenders are more lenient than ever. So if you're interested in saving $3,500 on a new Volkswagen Tiguan S and owning it for $299 down, $299 per month, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. DB'scheesesteaks.com.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
The JB and Goldwater Show.
That's us. Because we play this.
And there are these guys in a band on stage bouncing on trampolines, and one of them is playing a vacuum cleaner on his face. It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. this band was going for it as hard as they could. I've never seen anything like it. And I said to the bartender, I was like, who is this band? Oh, this is a band from New Hampshire called Fish.
12:34. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater show on this Thursday afternoon here in the Low Country of South Carolina. But our show you can listen to anywhere in the world, watch it anywhere in the world as well. And if you are watching, you get to see the face of Corey McCartney in Atlanta, Georgia. So welcome to the show that just puts your image all across the globe, Corey. You've got fans from corner to corner, man.
Me up from Mozambique as we speak. So
there you go. They're big fans.
What is the Reverend Al Sharpton? What's that movie? Mr. Deeds, when he's up there rhyming during his uncle's funeral.
Okay.
And the Reverend Al Sharpton goes, "That's a nice rhyme. Nice rhyme." Remember that?
No, if you quote movies and ask me,
he tells him, "I'll bring the beers."
Yeah,
I'll bring the beers.
I'll bring the beers.
All right. Well, I can get on board.
Yeah, Dr. Pepper. That's a great movie. How are you, my friend?
A little bit better than the Braves have been since they hit them winning this road trip and found themselves getting beat around in the Bronx. But Marlins are up next, and we'll see what happens. The NL East leading Marlins. Yeah. Make sure we put that in front of it.
Can you believe the Braves? And I guess there are other teams, but you're at the third way mark here. I mean, it's a 60-game season. We're 20 games in here already.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
The season, I feel like, is almost over. It just started.
Unless you're the Cardinals and you played 5 games, or you're the Phillies and you just played 6 games in a row for the first time this season. So 6 days in a row. So it's certainly not been what we expected. I mean, we thought the NL East was just going to be absolutely stacked, and every team in this division has had some issue, and the Marlins, despite that, I mean, this is the first time since 1899 that a team, won at least 6 of its first 7 games after dropping 105 the previous year. And now they have a 1-game lead going into this division series this weekend against the Braves.
Yeah, but you know what they've said, Corey. I mean, this is just a glorified independent league team. They should shut it down, right? Just shut it down.
You know what? They're professionals, and
that's exactly right.
I know there's a lot of people that say I could go pitch from the Braves rotation right now. It's been such a mess, but don't kid yourself.
Yeah, no, let's not do that. Yeah, the last 3 nights have not been kind to the Braves rotation as they've given up 28 runs. That 13-run performance by the Phillies, and then the Yankees have scored 15 combined in the last 2 nights, and they just continue to search for answers, Corey. Where do we find them right now?
Unfortunately, there's no easy answer. And this rotation outside of Fried, they just cannot get through 18 outs. I mean, the rotation's averaging 4 1/3 innings, which is the 3rd worst in the NL. They're only ahead of the Marlins and the Pirates. They've failed to make it through 6 innings in 15 of 20 games this season. And 2 of the times that they actually have been from Fried and another one from Soroka. So they just can't do anything, once they get past Fried's start. Certainly, you think about how that's become kind of the nature of baseball these past few years. I mean, you look back these top 7 years, and they've had 5 of the top 11 in terms of the years in which the starter failed to get 18 outs, the most games. But this year in particular, it just seems to be magnified, and certainly so with Soroka out of the mix.
Yeah. I saw that Acuna has already been ruled out of this weekend series. Is there more to this wrist injury than just a little contusion?
Heard some people, talk about, how he and Ozzie Albies played a lot of video games during quarantine. They still play. They've still continued to play since Albies has been out, and then basically, he's dealing with an issue that stems from playing too much video games. He's said it's from sliding back into a base, but I know there's been some injury experts who have said this has probably a lot more to do with the amount of video games that he's playing. So I don't know what the answer is, but obviously this offense needs him. With runners in scoring position, they're 22nd in the league right now, and their best bat in those situations has been Ronald Acuna Jr. So not having him, no matter what the reason is that he's not available right now, it's an absolute disaster.
Too many video games? That's real? That is really what people are saying. I've never heard that before.
Like a tendonitis thing?
You think about the amount of times you're on there and the wrist is twisting around, and the controllers are bigger than they were back when we had the little NES deals, So,
dude,
you think about the thumb, but I don't know the wrist. But I've heard speculation that it could stem from video games.
I mean, you know what? All right, we got video game-initis on this side. We got COVID. Just let them go out and live their lives. Let them take their chances with the COVID crap, and so we don't have to worry about video game-initis anymore. I mean, oh my gosh. What in life, if that's true, what in life is not a risk? I mean, honestly.
Man, this is in 2020 everything's a risk.
That's true.
All right, well, I look, they've certainly hit a slump here. What's amazing about this conversation with the Atlanta Braves is when we were coming into the season, well, even as far back as like March, but coming into this 60-game season, even with a couple of injuries here and there on the pitching staff, you still felt very comfortable. I mean, Corey, do you remember those conversations we were having? Oh, they're going to run out 7 or 8 starters. They're going to predetermined split a lot of games. They got more arms than they know what to do with, and now they can't find arms.
We've seen Huascar Ynoa, get opportunities to start a game, and again, they cannot get through those first 18 outs. The point where Josh Tomlin, who I think's biggest contribution to this team, is basically picking up the pieces from those young starters in their field opportunities to get through those early innings. Does he start to get starts? We saw Sean Newcomb has now been pushed back to Gwinnett and the satellite group there. I mean, I think it's inevitable that we see Newcomb back in a bullpen role where he thrived last year. I think we're going to see Mike Fulton-Nevich get another opportunity much sooner than anybody thought he was going to in a Braves uniform. Like, certainly you've got Bryce Wilson. We've seen flashes of stuff from guys like Tuki Toussaint, and then they've followed that up by having a lot of struggles. And we still don't know if we're ever going to see Cole Hamels pitch with the Braves. So it's, when we talk about ramping him up, it's probably going to be mid-September before an opportunity for him to get on the mound in a meaningful way. So there's no easy solution. And as we talked about before, with this trade deadline coming up August 31st, there's a lot of teams in the mix, and there's a lot of teams that just have issues of their own and probably aren't going to be willing to trade the kind of arms that the Braves need.
Wow.
August 31st is getting on us here pretty quickly, too.
18 days.
As we're, I guess, a third of the way through the season here, has your outlook on the most interesting part of the season changed? Where does that stand today?
In terms of the schedule, or just what's been happening in the
what's been the realm of baseball. I mean, be it the Cubs, be it the Pirates' inability to win a game, Juan Soto. We can go there if you want.
I've been surprised by certain teams. I mean, the Orioles are playing above 500. We've been talking about the Marlins. You got the Rockies, team that people thought was going to take a step back. Certainly the Padres, the youth has played so much quicker there, faster than we anticipated. I think there's certainly teams that you wonder if they have staying power. But at 20 games in, we knew small sample sizes were going to play a major role in how the race is shaped out this year. And so far, when you think about a Marlins team being in first place and the Padres and the Orioles somehow fighting for postseason spots, as we hit that 20-game mark. I mean, it's just, to me, this is as surprising as it gets for baseball in 2020.
Chicago Cubs 12-3, best start since 1970. Corey.
Before the starting pitching has been phenomenal. The bullpens need some help. Craig Kimbrell has fallen off so much of what we saw him be at times in Boston and certainly here in Atlanta. Jason Hayward got a home run last night. That's something you don't see all the time out of him. But yeah, that Cubs team looks awfully good, and that's just like the AL East, the NL East. We thought that the National League Central was going to be absolutely stacked, and you've got 3 teams that are below 500 in that division right now too. And the Reds, I was high on the Reds in the offseason, and they're just not putting it together right now. But again, I think we've got time. We've got 40 games left, but we've gotten some weird stuff so far out of this 20-game sample.
How about the Oakland Athletics? I mean, this was a team that I thought before the season was, they were on the radar. There's no doubt about that. But I thought not only should they be on the radar, they should probably be considered favorites to win the World Series. I mean, if you ask the common baseball fan, hey, name one person in the Oakland A's lineup, especially on the East Coast, or most probably can't do it. But here they are at 13-6. And they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. They're leading the West by 4 games over the Rangers, 4.5 over the Houston Astros, who are certainly the favorite, 6 over the Angels. I mean, this is an incredible start. Everybody's looked at the Yankees and circled them maybe as the best team in the American League this year, if not the best team in baseball. But Oakland has been playing just as well as anybody.
Offense, the top 5 pitching staff. I mean, certainly you know about Olsen and Chapman and what those guys are capable of. I mean, there may not be a better combination in all of baseball when you talk about what you provide at the 2 corners in the infield. But I think from a pitching standpoint, I mean, you know, Montas and Bassett, I mean, they've gotten some really good production out of those guys. You know, I think that's the thing that's really separated them. I mean, you're facing obviously some really good offensive teams in that division. You know, they're going to see, you know, Mike Trout and company much more than they would like to in this year. But, you know, they've been the most complete team, I think, when you consider, you know, everybody who's in a division lead right now. I mean, you can kind of find some chinks in the armor with almost everybody, but it's hard to do so right now with this A's team.
Talking with Corey McCartney here. He's a Heisman voter. He's a Football Writers of America Association. Same with baseball as well. I want to kind of circle back to the Braves a little bit and the report about the revenue dropping, 95%. What does baseball look like moving forward? I mean, are there major ramifications, other than some of the minor rule tweaks, are there major ramifications of this year on baseball moving forward?
Interesting with the Braves is, you know, they were in the unfortunate situation of, unlike a lot of major sports teams in this country, of being owned by, you know, publicly traded companies. So you can't hide behind the books like a lot of other teams can. So they, you know, had to disclose, you know, where they were. And certainly, you know, the revenue of $11 million this past quarter, after I believe it was over $200 million a year ago at that time. And certainly being landowners, real estate moguls helps a lot with them in terms of what they have, you know, at the Battery, and you know, these companies paying into rent and whatnot, and their ability to develop that land around there. I mean, I think a lot of teams looked at that as kind of the model. You know, maybe that does help in a situation like that where you're still getting some, you know, revenue from those groups. But, you know, I think, you know, unless you're having that consistent money coming in from a TV contract, you know, we saw obviously these teams get a lot of that cut this year. I mean, I think it's ultimately what's going to happen this offseason is you're not going to see some of the deals, you know, that maybe we've seen in these past years. You know, these contracts are probably going to have to reflect, you know, what happened this year. So we're probably going to see some kind of long-term aspects of this where, you know, maybe you're going to see guys take shorter deals because they don't want to buy in knowing that they're coming in a year when the teams frankly just weren't making as much money as they'd hoped to.
Was there any team coming into the season in baseball, Corey, who was in such dire straits financially that this large of an impact, you know, a 90% drop in revenue or more, something like that, could do significant damage? I mean, how do you climb out of that hole? And I say significant damage. I mean, you can dream however you'd like to dream that phrase up there. But was there anybody who was that close to, hey, I don't know if we're going to make it?
Teams you think about, right? I mean, certainly the Florida teams, you know, you had heard that the Rays, you know, if we had not had a season, that there was a potential that some of those teams were going to probably have to file for bankruptcy. You know, I think that's why this expanded postseason is such a big deal, because you're talking about the tens of millions of dollars going back into the coffers there. You know, with the obviously the television contracts and, you know, the win shares and all that comes with it. I think that was an important part. I'm surprised, honestly, it took so as long as it did, right up almost until first pitch before we saw the players buy in or the baseball kind of come into agreement for them to have that expanded postseason. But there was threats. I mean, there was talk that this was probably what was going to happen if we didn't have a season, that we're going to be teams in trouble. So again, these are two teams we're talking about being right in the mix to get into the postseason. You know, it's those ones that you're used to hearing about, the ones that just struggle in terms of attendance. You know, are they going to end up moving? Are they in a new stadium? It's those teams that I think we're used to heering about.
Corey McCartney on Twitter at Corey J. McCartney in Atlanta, Georgia. 12:48 on the JB and Goldwater show on this Thursday afternoon. Corey, with that being said, you mentioned the revenues that will be associated with an expanded playoff. How exactly does that revenue transition to the teams? Is it only to the teams in the playoff, or is there any percentage that goes to the rest of Major League Baseball?
Share aspect of it, but, you know, by and large, you're talking about the teams that get in. Okay. You know, the expanded, obviously, media rights that come with those games being in their parks and having to share that. So that's certainly going to be a big piece of it. But you will see some with the revenue share going to those other teams as well, because that's when you start looking at, compensatory picks and who ranks where and all that stuff in terms of how much those teams were buying into the revenue share from the previous year.
Wow. I'm going to be selfish here for a second because I want to talk about Juan Soto. And if you're not a fan of the Nationals and you're not paying attention to maybe what he did in the postseason last year or what he's done since coming back from his COVID test, yesterday he hit a ball 466 feet. Then he homered again. So he's got back-to-back days of career-long home runs. He's up there in terms of most home runs by this age with some of the biggest names in baseball history. What's the ceiling for Juan Soto? I mean, is this a sustainable track that we've seen from really almost all of last year, now carrying into this year, even to the year before that?
In the first 2 full seasons he's had, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's hitting, over 40% above league average in both years. We've seen 50+ home runs, out of him in those 2 completed seasons too. So, he doesn't have quite the swagger that Acuna has. And I'm sure, as a Nationals fan, when people start talking about, the best, who's going to take the crown from Mike Trout, when he kind of moves out of his prime as the best player in baseball. I think Acuna comes to mind for people a lot more than Soto does because Acuna has more of a complete game. But the plate discipline from Soto, I think, has just always been what really sets him apart. I mean, nobody takes a ball and makes taking a ball quite as entertaining as Juan Soto does. I mean, I think that's a skill in itself, right? I mean, to kind of have that swagger to move around in the box as he does when he doesn't like to pitch. I mean, that's if you start watching, the little kids are starting to pick up on that a little bit too. So, Seth Curry made shooting threes cool, and now Juan Soto is taking pitches kind of cool.
The Soto shuffle.
I didn't know that was
Soto shuffle.
I didn't know we paid attention to taking pitches. That's a new trend in baseball, huh? Is there a stat for that?
Lengthening games.
Yeah, human rain delay time.
That's right. That's right. All right, I would ask you about the importance of the foreseeable schedule for the Atlanta Braves, but because of the recent struggles, it is incredibly important with the fact that they've lost 4 of the last 6. But quickly, here it is: 3 at Miami, 3 at home against Washington, and then 3 at home against Philadelphia. And then they'll also host the New York Yankees for 2 before going to Philadelphia for 3 more, and then Boston. So they don't get any breaks. I think if you would have looked at this schedule before the season started, you would you see Miami in there, you maybe take a peek at Philadelphia. All right, there's going to be a couple of breathers. But what we've found here now, Corey, is even in a 60-game season, through 20 games, as Darren mentioned a moment ago, this thing is really, truly flying by as we've gone a third of the way into it. So there are no more off days. Regardless of what the schedule says, whether it's at Baltimore or at New York, it doesn't really matter. Every single game, this is a true pennant race from start to finish.
There's no let up in this division. I mean, again, except from the get-go here, every team in this division kind of has some issues going on now. The Nationals, you mentioned they'll get them after the Marlins. Steven Strasburg obviously dealing with an issue. Max Scherzer came back, from one and had a phenomenal game. But, we know this division is going to be tight. Who's going to get quick, who's going to get hot, and who's going to make it stick. But it's obviously with this Braves team, it's just a matter of health. I mean, when are they going to get Ozzie Albies back? We've got no timetable on that. It's on the 10-day disabled list, but there's been nothing, certain in terms of a return for him. We don't know Acuna how long he'll be out. We don't know, when Cole Hamels is ever going to make that return. So, and Freddie Freeman's been struggling lately. So, unfortunately, there's no easy fix for this Braves team, and the schedule is not going to help. It's just going to get tougher as it goes. And certainly, wake up calls, I think, if you will, these last 2 games against the Yankees, because you start trying to kind of make up in your mind, what do you look like as a team when you pitch yourself against a team that everybody considers, one of the top 2 World Series favorites right now, and it did not play well for the Braves these last 2 games.
Hey, real quick, I do want to ask you a couple football questions. Believe it or not, we've been talking a lot about football lately. But before we do that, how about I saw. It might be more than this. I saw 56 just a couple of days ago pitchers with arm injuries at this point in the season. I don't think we've ever really seen that before. And can you comment on that? Just maybe what you think part of the reasoning is. And there's a lot of reasons for these injuries, but maybe part of the reasoning, obviously the start to beginning to the season and things of that nature.
I think more than anything, and I mentioned this. I heard the foremost expert on on arm ligaments, and Dr. James Andrews say the exact same thing. When you're asking these guys to start and then stop and then start again, and, spring training is the length it is for a reason, and we're ramping these guys up. And certainly, when you're going out there trying to throw those high leverage innings, it's weird that we've seen offense kind of be down overall, and we've seen pitching injuries kind of, along with that. But the number of pitching injuries that we've seen is certainly something that's alarming without question. But we've seen oddity ones too. I mean, what happened to Soroka could happen anytime, any place. But certainly, something like Ohtani, could play into the role of how quickly these guys had to get rolling again.
Yep.
All right. Really no reason to dive deep into conferences and who's playing and who's not playing, because it's quiet enough today. Let's leave it there. But the Big Ten and the Pac-12 not playing, obviously, Justin, you're a Heisman voter. Justin Fields was going to be a front runner for the Heisman Trophy. Even Phil Steele on our program less than a month ago sat here and picked him on our program. He said, look, I think he'll have more opportunities to win the Heisman Trophy, but he's not going to have that opportunity now. So let me ask you this as a Heisman voter. I think Trevor Lawrence is probably at the top of this list, but when you look at this, you're really going to have 3 Power 5 programs to find some of the top players in the country if they do play, and we're assuming right now that they're going to, and then we'll see what happens out there in other leagues. But do you vote on a Heisman winner? What if they play in the spring too? Do you have another Heisman Trophy winner? How does this work?
I'd love to get some clarification from the Heisman Trust. They've not been forthcoming with anything at this time. I've mentioned before, they've been pretty steadfast that they want it to be in December. It's a TV show, and they've never been willing to push it past the bowl games. But this is unprecedented. Do you wait until after the spring and you weigh those 2 seasons against each other? There's going to be a lot of guys who are going to be out this spring. If Justin Fields plays, and I would think that there's going to be a number of guys who are going to say, nope, I'm supposed to be a first-round draft pick. There's no way I'm taking the field for spring football with the NFL draft right around the corner. But, how do you gauge what he does, if it's against lesser competition, if there's fewer guys, that are those big-time players coming back, as opposed to what happens this fall in the SEC, ACC, and Big 12. So it's going to be really difficult. I hope we don't hand out 2 Heismans, and I hope there's some clarification from the trust here. But I think they're going to have to make some kind of a stand, because something outside the norm is going to have to happen, because we can't just forget about 2 conferences that haven't really play what you want to consider their 2020 seasons.
What's your sense on whether or not we will have a fall, whether the big 3 that are left standing are going to proceed and get to opening week?
School teacher, and we got back to school here in Metro Atlanta in her district. This is our 2nd week back. And my son's middle school has already had cases. The high school he would go to is already shut down and gone back to digital learning. The neighboring high school a mile away has already shut down and gone back to digital learning. I have no idea, but I think what the problem is that we're having all these people make individual decisions. And I think if this shows us anything, is that college football needs some kind of czar at the top of things that's the one making decisions for everybody, and not allowing these university presidents and these individual conferences to decide what they want to do.
Well said. Corey McCartney on Twitter at Corey J. McCartney. Great insight as always. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, my friend. We, of course, every hour is a news hour anymore, so we'll continue to be on top of everything that we can be. And then next Thursday, we'll do this again with you. And by then, hopefully the Braves will be winning a bunch of baseball games, and hopefully they'll have some pitchers on the mound. That'd be nice.
Speak for yourself.
I appreciate it.
Always. Thank you. Corey McCartney joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. It is time for a timeout. It's the end of hour 1 here on this Thursday afternoon. Kind of a dreary afternoon here in the low country of South Carolina. But it won't be a dreary conversation next. Brian Levinson joins us. He's got a wonderful book that is coming out. But this book, as it pertains to the mentality and performance of athletes and business owners and things of that nature, it also will very much so encompass the climate that we are in with COVID-19 and how you prepare as an athlete mentally. How do you transition that? Whether you think you might play, you're not going to play. How do you be successful at this point in time? I think you'll want to hear this. This is really neat. This might not be the breaking news we've had for 3 straight days on this program, but very similar to what David Caravello did with his book release on Tuesday here. Some really insightful comments that you're going to hear coming up on the other side of this break. So if you're watching or listening, don't go anywhere. Stay interested. Scott Glaze is coming up at 1:30 as well, and we do have some more football to get to this afternoon. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by our friends at Stokes Volkswagen, where you can find them at stokesvw.com. Great deals right now in North Charleston at Stokes Volkswagen. Always a great deal around here. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back 9 is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
And 103 on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back. Final segment, final hour. Not final segment, final hour of the afternoon here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by our friends at Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com. Darren Goldwater to my left. I am Jamie. Collectively, we are at JB and Goldwater across all social media platforms. You can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope. And you, of course, we're on Instagram, too. You can follow us there, but you can't watch us there. And you can listen for free every day on the Podbean app. JBandGoldwaterShow.com is where you can find everything there is to know about Darren and myself. And at 1:30 this afternoon, Scott Glaze, he'll hop in and we'll get to some golf with him, of course, thanks to Corey McCartney for joining us in that last segment. But that leads us to this segment. Brian Levinson's going to join us now for the first time. He is a mental performance coach. He works with performers in sport and in business on their mental game, which a lot of folks probably might need Brian today. He's also the author of a new book, Shift Your Mind, that is set to be released here on October the 6th, and he has been kind enough to hop on board with Darren and I for a few minutes this afternoon to share what is coming in this book and maybe to share his thoughts on how athletes could be dealing with this COVID crisis today. So with all that being said, Brian, I think I was told you're in Bethesda, Maryland. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Jamie. I can't see you, but I can see Darren's beautiful face. So
I'm sorry.
I'm assuming you're as beautiful as Darren is.
Much more so. Yeah.
There's a reason why that camera doesn't get close to me, man.
I always tell people, Jamie, that I've got a face for radio, and I don't know what my voice is for, but I've gotten all kinds of different reviews and remarks on my voice. But back in the day, I could see myself doing what you all did. I actually went to Syracuse University, and at that point had a dream and an ambition to be a play-by-play guy, probably similar to, I think, Darren, the path that you've been on. And I don't know if my voice can last that long though. It's a scratchy voice that comes in and out. So I'll try to give you my best for our time today.
Let me tell you, it's a good voice, man. And you made the right decision. The play-by-play path is a dumb path to go down, especially without college sports.
That's true. Yeah. Makes it tough. Brian, thank you. So first and foremost, this book, Shift Your Mind, will be out on October the 6th. So we've got a little bit of time to wait. Oh, you know what? I got to do. Hold on. Before I get there, I have to ask the standard question that I ask to folks who come on and tell us about their new book on our show. Can you sign a copy and send it to me?
Where are you going with this?
You know what's crazy? Yes is the answer. But I've been telling everybody, people are asking me to sign it. And I don't know. I thought we were kind of done with autographs once the camera phone came out.
No.
And all these people are asking me, I've got an awful signature, like one of those very lazy, it's like a BL signature. And I asked my mom, who has a beautiful signature, and I can see her signature now when I was a kid. And I asked her if she could sign all these copies for me, or maybe I could do the Adobe where you can just do the auto sign thing. But yes, I can send you all a copy in the next month or so, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And
yeah,
I'm happy to sign it. I think it just devalues the book a little bit.
No,
if you have my signature in there is going to make it a little less valuable.
So you've got a video out that's really cool how you produced it about the book. It's about preparation. It's about how preparation then leads to success. It's about a 1.5-minute long video. And I guess it's a good thing. I found myself very much so relating to the, as I said kind of at the start of the show, the anal side of the preparation and then the relaxed side of actual performance, like this show. I mean, I kill myself getting ready for it, and then, we start the show and we just have a good time. As you were writing this book, you got it down to about 9 core values. Why 9? And how long did it take to get to that point?
It's funny because there were people along the way that would say, oh, 7's a good number or 10's a good number. And I was like, I don't care what the number is. I just want to tell the truth in the book. So to be honest, we had 35 of these shifts that I had discovered with a lot of my clients over the years. And we just felt that 35 was going to be a little overwhelming. And some of those shifts were going to be a little redundant. They would overlap a bit. So we kept drilling down until we got to 9 that we felt really good about. And so I want to be clear that we went back and forth on whether we wanted to put the number in the subtitle, 9 mental shifts to help you thrive in preparation and performance. It's not the 9. There could be other shifts that you need to make for your job or your craft that don't involve the 9 that we focus on in the book, but we feel good about drilling down the 9 that we decided on, and they're backed by science and they're backed by anecdotes and experiences I've had with my clients. But I'm not a one size fits all guy. So it's important that people know that it's not the 9, but it happens to be 9 that we focused on for the book.
All right. So the book is titled Shift Your Mind, but you're not just some guy that wrote a book. I mean, you actually have a career in this, and if folks will go to strongskills.co, this website, you help a lot of people. What do you do?
Yeah, my story goes something like this. I told you I went to Syracuse, and while at Syracuse, I was a lost puppy. I was really good at staying in the moment, being present. I was a freshman when Carmelo Anthony was a freshman. So if you follow college basketball, that was a pretty good year for me. I had a lot to do with Syracuse winning their first ever national championship. Carmelo might have also had something to do with it, but I loved college, and I was a liberal arts guy. So I had no idea what I wanted to do out of college. Fast forward, I do sales for a few years and get introduced to sports psychology by a woman named Julie Ellion. Julie starts mentoring me. We figure out where to go to grad school. I study sports psychology, get my master's in it, and come back and work alongside Julie, and was really fortunate. She was working with pro teams, a lot of pro golfers, and helped me build my practice. And along the way, it's evolved and changed and morphed. So still work with a lot of athletes and coaches and sports teams, but I started to get phone calls from people outside sports that would say, hey, Brian, I'm a CEO, or I'm a director of sales, or I started working with athletic directors. And I just love helping people get from where they are to where they want to go. And for me, the most important components of clients are that they are open, they're driven, they're curious, they're ambitious. And I find inside of sport or outside of sport, it doesn't really matter what someone does for a living. I'm just obsessed with helping people that are on the path and trying to do big things. And I like to be there to help them unlock their potential or see new possibilities, ask great questions, provide them with frameworks like I do in the book. And we sort of go from there. I'm a human-centric guy. Like, what I understand best is humans, and sports has always been something that I've understood pretty well. So I can speak that language. So that's probably the path I went down, and the passion was there. But honestly, I just love helping people get from where they are to where they want to go.
If you were to go into, let's say, Syracuse's football locker room right now, how would you address the coaching staff? How would you address the guys as one of the teams that's still currently out there projected to play?
I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't address them. I would ask a bunch of questions and find out where they're at. And so I really believe working from the inside out rather than the outside in. So it would start with a conversation with the head coach and being in partnership and collaborating with that head coach. So I don't work well with sports teams unless the head coach is all in on my work. And then I need great trust from that head coach that I'm not going to screw with their players or mess with their players. And we're going to work together on the vocabulary that we use to create a culture and an identity that is in alignment with what they value and what they believe their mission, vision, and philosophy is. So I think my work, and I've worked with college football before, it works best when we're in collaboration. And then I'm helping that head coach figure out what messaging they want to provide to their players. And then I also create space for that coach to develop, and then for the players to also develop. And as it relates to COVID, look, I think this is a crazy time for all of us. And I think psychology plays a massive role for every individual that's going through this crazy time, including myself. And this isn't a time where you're just going to master this. This is a wicked time. And sports is actually a wicked environment. When you show up on game day, the refs could, a call could go against you. The fans could be yelling all kinds of stuff at you. The weather could be against you. So sports does simulate a lot of the wickedness that life can provide. I think that's one of the things most people like about sports. It's a nice analogy. And so for me, it would be a lot of one-on-one conversations, and then also thinking about how can we prepare? How are we setting up our preparation mindset so that if and when we get to take the field again, we can go out there and kick ass and take names and perform at our highest level and highest capacity. But I want to just stress and emphasize that for me, when I work with people, it's often in collaboration, and it's often based on asking a lot of questions rather than telling them what they should do or shouldn't do.
Brian Levinson, author of the brand new book coming out October the 6th, Shift Your Mind. You mentioned to prepare. How would you prepare an athlete, and it doesn't have to be a football player, any athlete who maybe is a senior or a fifth-year senior, and this is it. This is the end of the road, and because of COVID, they are not going to get to continue to live out their dream as a college athlete, or maybe even beyond that, and it's almost essentially time to turn the page to whatever may be next in life. I know you mentioned that you ask a lot of questions. I love that answer. How would you prepare somebody that is not preparing to go back out and perform whatever craft it may be in the sports world?
Some things in life suck.
That's true.
They do. Like, I think Darren and I both know someone whose sister just passed away. Yep. And that sucks. Like, that's reality. I was talking to someone about this the other day. Let's just zoom out a little bit. You guys know prom is overrated. It's not that big of a deal, but when you were a junior and senior in high school, you thought prom was a pretty big deal. And people's proms got canceled. Weddings are being postponed or, are being drastically altered and changed. And, the spring season for a lot of athletes was cut short. So I work with 2 different college departments in Washington, D.C., and it sucks. Like there is no way around that. It does suck. So I want to start by just saying you have to acknowledge when things suck and they're bad. I don't believe in just being positive. I think it's important to be aware and mindful and to understand that. And there's a time to be a victim and there's a time to be a survivor. And then there's a time to be a thriver. So the first thing I would say is let's own it. Let's say, yeah, this sucks. And I think that's important for all of us right now because there are elements to this thing that suck. People losing their jobs, people losing loved ones. You can't sugarcoat that stuff. So what would I say to an athlete that lost their senior season? Let's acknowledge it. Let's sit in it and have some space and let them vent and let them express what they're feeling. And then from that space, it just doesn't help us to be a victim all the time. So at some point we have to shift from being a victim to a survivor. And to me, a survivor says it is what it is. There's nothing I can do. Control what I can control. It is what it is. And then when you're in that space, then you can shift into what I call thriver mode, which is, all right, what did I learn? And what am I going to do now? And what are the opportunities that exist? And watch what I'm going to do. And I think we all have the capacity to live in any of those 3 boxes: victim, survivor, thriver. And I think all of us should respect people when they're in that victim mode and help them to try to get into that survivor mode. And then once they're in that survivor mode, help them get into more of a thriver mode, which is, hey, watch what I'm going to do. So I know for me in my business, I've been in those 3 boxes during this time. And right now with the book out, I'm very much in that thriver mode. I think there's a massive opportunity for me to have conversations with people over Zoom, to talk to them about the book. I have a podcast. I've been able to get so many guests on my podcast that in the past I wasn't able to get. There's all kinds of offerings that I can do now that everyone's using Zoom, and I've loved Zoom for a long time. So I would say to that senior, once they're ready to hear it and once they're ready to receive it, hey, what are the opportunities that currently exist? What did you learn from this experience? And how can you take it with you? Because most seniors in college don't go on to play pro sports. How can you use it in whatever else is next for you? And that's probably the approach I would take.
Have you found in your time, Brian, that have you or can you measure the difficulty in your time with working with athletes that they have when their careers end for whatever reason it may be, whether it's their eligibility has expired or they were not selected in a draft or they had an injury or they just decided that it just wasn't for them anymore? And again, I'm saying all athletes here, not just college football players, but have you found that it's very difficult for them to go back into their vault and take all of the things that helped them become who they were as an athlete and apply those same things to the next step in their lives, that transition period and the difficulty of that? Can you expand on that?
Transition's difficult for everybody. I remember when I transitioned out of college, I wasn't a Division I athlete. It was a hard transition just because I had spent the last 4 years creating an identity. I felt comfortable where I was. And then you're thrown out in the real world and you're ready to take on the world. And the world's not saying it's ready for you to take on the world. So I just want to start there. Transition's difficult. And then as it relates to athletes, their identity, the sport is not who they are. It's what they do. And the best example I give of that is Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. They both played tight end for the New England Patriots, were both these big, strong, good-looking guys. They both were, Pro Bowlers excelling, and their paths were completely different. And if you watch the Aaron Hernandez documentary, you'll see his identity. He really struggled with understanding who he was. And hate or love Gronk has a pretty good sense of who he is and his identity. And but from the outside looking in, we just see 6'4", 6'5", good looking, strong, runs a good 40, catches the ball. We judge these guys based on what they do and not necessarily who they are. And I will tell you, I've worked with a number of pro athletes. These guys are different and their identities are very different. And so one of the things I really harp on with anybody transitioning out of their sport is, who are you? And really getting clear on what their values are, what their mission is. And once they can get clear on that, that's when I think what you were talking about, JB, is how do you then apply it? and how do you apply it to whatever it is you want to do? And that is a real transition. And the thing that most athletes say they miss is the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the locker room, being part of something bigger than themselves. And a lot of times the real world doesn't provide opportunities to create that camaraderie. So we talk about what are some opportunities where they could create those relationships? How do they create a confidence in themselves and knowing that they know what to do, which they've developed in their sport? And then also, how can they create some form of autonomy within themselves, some freedom to go be a high performer? And what I just listed is something called the self-determination theory. It's a little psychology term where they believe that motivation and really wellness stems from competence, relatedness, and autonomy. So those are things that I talk about with clients all the time. And I actually work with a lot of executives that are former athletes. And sometimes they come to me because they'll say, when I was a Division I soccer player, I had this mindset, and now I'm in sales and I don't have that mindset. How can I cultivate that again? So they're pretty common conversations. And that's when we dive into their mission and their values to really get clear on who they are and what their identity is.
Talking with Brian Levinson. Shift Your Mind is the book that's coming out. It's coming out in October. When did you decide to write the book? Who is the book for?
So I probably decided 5 years ago and then kicked it around and actually talked to a few writers about co-writing it with me because I'm not a writer. So I am a coach. I've trained in coaching both at the executive level and with sports psychology. That's what I do. I'm a decent writer. Like, teachers along the way have said you're a good writer. My dad has a background in journalism. I guess that might help. But nobody ever was like, dude, you're a writer. You should go write for a newspaper or whatever writers do these days. But I couldn't get this idea out of my head, Darren. Once I saw this notion of your mindset for preparation is actually different than your mindset for performance. And I would hear so many people talk about just stay humble, just be selfless, just have confidence. And I was like, well, when do we need to be humble? When do we need to be selfless? If you've ever taken one of those personality assessments like the Myers-Briggs, you might say like, well, it depends when I'm doing something. So in our world, in the sport world, we really talk about preparation and performance. And so the book is about these shifts. And it took about 3 years to actually sit down and write it. And actually hired a coach because I wanted to do a great job on it. I didn't want to just do a mediocre job. I worked with a publisher. I really wanted to make this book as strong as it possibly can be. And I feel good about it. I think it's as strong as it could be. Who's it for? Publishers love to ask that question. And Look, I wrote this book because I thought I was interested in it. I thought that my clients would be interested in it. And it was something that I was doing with my clients. So I was already doing these themes and bringing this framework to them, and they were finding great benefits in it. I would say anyone that's competing or performing, so salespeople, but I've had moms where I talk about this idea and concept to, and they say, gosh, I need to leverage that when I'm parenting. And I'm the parent of 2 kids. How I prepare to talk to my kids and then how I actually perform with my kids are 2 separate things. And I need to be really intentional and thoughtful about that. So look, if you're narrowing it down, I definitely would say anyone that is being judged or evaluated for their performance, this is really helpful for. But I think all of us are performers in our own way. So I hope I answered that question. I have a hard time answering who it's for because I just tried to write something that was thoughtful and poured my heart and soul into it and got great feedback and had great help along the way to try to make it as valuable as possible.
What an answer. Wow.
Yeah, you did answer. It was solid.
Strongskills.co is where you can go, .com without the M, strongskills.co. And, of course, on Twitter, at Brian Levinson, 2 E's in his last name there if you'd like to follow him. The book will be out on October the 6th. You can pre-order this, $17.99, great price for a wonderful book, available at Amazon. It'll be in Barnes & Noble stores. Where else will this be, Brian?
Yeah, pretty much anywhere you get your book. So there's independent stores. I went, I don't know if Darren's familiar with Politics and Prose. It's a Washington, D.C. bookstore. And I was just curious if it was in their store. I went online and there it was. So I think anywhere you get your books, it should be available.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to my signed copy that I can read. My legibly signed copy, okay?
You got it.
Say hi to your parents for me, man.
Brian, thank you. That was excellent. That was absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to read this book, and we will do our part in trying to continue to promote this for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, guys, for having me. And just a quick shout out to Darren. And I'm a few years younger than Darren. So when we were growing up in the same neighborhood, I would look over and see him, playing sports and look up to him. And it's amazing when you're younger how much you look up to the people that are older than you. Darren, I think you did a good job. So I think there's nothing bad that I have to say on air.
On air. I appreciate it, man.
And chapter 13 in Shift Your Mind is about my relationship with Darren Goldwater.
How Darren forced me down a different road.
Now I see why we're doing this today. All right. Yeah. Shift Your Mind, 9 mental shifts to thrive in preparation and performance, written by Brian Levinson, this has been a wonderful conversation. Brian, thank you so much. And once the book is out, we'll do this again.
Thanks, fellas. Be well, be safe, be healthy. Look forward to talking to you soon.
You got it.
Man.
See you. Go. Really good stuff there. Hopefully, who is this book for? I'd say this book's for anybody.
That was the general answer.
How's it going to do you harm to read that book? It's not.
I'll put it out on Twitter here when we get to a break. There is I referenced it right at the start of the conversation, about a 1.5-minute preview. It's on YouTube, so I'll just throw it up on our Twitter page of the book, and the way it is done and diagrammed, and I believe it's his voice that's doing the voiceover for it. It gives you a very clear idea of what it's about and how as he put it in his words, the mindset for preparation is very different from the mindset for performance.
Right.
And it's not something I ever really thought about that way, but if you watch this and then read the book, it'll break it down for you. And I agree. I think it could probably help just about anybody.
Well, I think you said it well. I mean, you and I, we have a lot of hats that we wear in the morning. We have marketing duties, we have production duties, we have preparation duties for this show, and between when we wake up and when it's time to get going here right at 12 o'clock, it reminds me exactly when I played sports and when I coached. You do everything you can, you're focused, you drown out everything, and then when it's time to go, you go play, and afterwards you evaluate.
Yep.
And that's how's that different from anything in life? It shouldn't be different from much. So. Really good stuff there from Brian Levinson. We do have Scott Glaze coming up here. Let's push him back just a couple minutes if Scott can hold on for a little bit. I do want to get a little bit more information out here in football. Clemson today, for the first time, will be in full pads, guys. They will be in full pads. So generally, that's not that big of a deal. It's usually an exciting deal. But, of course, we know that most will be paying attention. Well, if he hits him, is he going to knock the Corona into him? If they're out there.
Knock the Corona into him.
If they're hitting with pads today, they should be out there. They're allowed to be out there. Just remember that. But they are in full pads, and camp has been going really well for Clemson. Dabo has felt really, really good about all of this over the last couple of days. Speaking of Clemson, Matt Fortuna with theathletic.com has written a column that I would encourage you to read if you are a Tiger fan. Who are the candidates to succeed ACC Commissioner John Swofford, who will his term, 24-year run, will be up next summer in leading the ACC. And two of the candidates that are supposedly in contention here, and one is what Matt Fortuna calls a popular candidate, is Dan Radakovich, alongside also Michael Kelly, who is the athletics director at South Florida. Shane Lyons, Oliver Luck, also names being thrown around as popular candidates for the ACC commissioner position. Shane Lyons is the athletics director at West Virginia, just so you know. No association to the ACC, at least not yet. We all know who Oliver Luck is, I would hope. But Dan Radakovich, according to Matt Fortuna, would want the job, according to multiple administrators within the league. That is what Matt Fortuna said here in this athletic column. Quote, Radakovich has overseen the league's flag bearer for football, especially during a down period for everything else in the ACC, and was the AD at Georgia Tech before that. But if Clements wants the job, that could get in his way. And, of course, I have a lot of respect, I think a lot of people do, for President Jim Clements up at Clemson, and he has been named as a potential candidate by several in the industry if he is interested. So could both of them be in contention for this? Have they discussed it? Hey, are you going to apply, or do you want? Why do you even want the job? I don't know. Those are very interesting names to be associated here, but I would also add very qualified names. Of course, at the heels of the COVID-19 pandemic, why you'd want to be a commissioner in college football right now is baffling to me.
What happens? What happens if they both want the job? They compete for the job, and neither gets the job. Then what? I mean, are feelings hurt?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, these guys are in positions that they love to be in right now. They're very well compensated. You know, I don't think that they're – I think it's I mean, I'm not trying to speak for either one of these guys, but I think that John Swofford has set an incredible example. So ultimately, right, if you're in the ACC, you're probably trying to find somebody who's going to follow as closely in his footsteps as possible. I'm sure there are certainly things that maybe some of the ADs and presidents and others in the Atlantic Coast Conference, like everywhere, might want done a little bit differently than what John Swofford has done. But you can't argue that John Swofford has been an incredibly respectable leader. You know, I think if you said, all right, what is the one con about the ACC? The one glaring weakness in this conference, I think it's very simple, Darren. They are not consistently a football power. I mean, Phil Steele said last year he had them ranked as their 6th best conference in football.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're apparently in the Power 5. So that's not good. That's besides Clemson. We know where Clemson stands in the world. But collectively as a league, I think there's a lot of people who are saying, look, I want somebody who's going to focus on bringing this league to the level of the SEC. I mean, they're all in the same backyard. The SEC and the ACC share states. They share a region or a similar region. They all recruit in the same areas. You know, a lot of folks can argue that it's more difficult to get into certain schools in the ACC than the SEC. I would say that's probably true in certain areas and probably not in other areas, depending on what you're going to school for. You got to look at this from all angles here. But that's probably the one glaring weakness. Now, when it comes to other things, sports specifics, they're all pretty good. And finances, they're real good. The ACC network has done a nice job. It should continue to grow. And remember, it will grow even more when football is that much better.
Yep.
Clemson's not always going to be on the ACC network because they're always going to be in prime time, probably on ABC or ESPN and places like that because how good they are. So you're going to have to get better from that middle down to bring those ratings up, make more money and things of that nature. But either way, the fact that both of those names have been mentioned and that maybe D-Rad would want that position, I think that would be wonderful for the Atlantic Coast Conference. I think they're both great. I think the big question would be, Dan Radakovich is a hell of a leader. And if you lose him, Clemson's got huge shoes to fill. So where do you go fill those shoes?
That's certainly a big question, and it goes without saying how important the hire will be for the ACC because Jim Delaney in the Big Ten was one of the most widely respected commissioners in college sports. And Kevin Warren's handling of the latest, the COVID situation and how the league has moved forward and now canceled the fall. Kevin Warren does not have the same stature. Very quickly he fell from that plateau of Jim Delaney. So it's a very important hire for the ACC.
No question, Darren. There's no doubt about that. PatriotsPoint.org to visit the finest museum in the state of South Carolina. It's right on the banks of the Cooper River in Mount Pleasant, the home of the USS Laffey, the USS Clamagore, the Vietnam War exhibit, and, of course, the USS Yorktown, and much, much more. PatriotsPoint.org for information, to get tickets and things like that. We thank them for presenting our anthem every day at 1 o'clock, but we most importantly thank them for what they do for the community in the state of South Carolina and the nation and honoring the great heroes of the United States military. Also, HolyCityDriveIn.com. That's where you'll find Darren this weekend, especially tomorrow night. One of his favorite movies will be airing, and that is Mean Girls, starring Lindsay Lohan and
You're
Tina
the
Fey.
one who knows who's in it.
I'm
Not
looking
me.
at the movie. Tomorrow night, 7:30, back your truck in, order food and drinks, and spend your time on the banks of the Cooper with the coolest drive-in movie series we've got. HolyCityDriveIn.com. Awesome pick Saturday night. The original Lion King that came out in 1994 is going to air over there. You can get a lawn ticket as well. And then if you need a day off, take it on Sunday with Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 7:30 Sunday evening at Patriots Point. HolyCityDriveIn.com for Showtime's tickets and more. Sorry, Scott. We're going to break. When we return, Scott Glaze, he'll join us from the banks of the Stono River, the original Hollywood, South Carolina, where Stono Ferry Golf Club is. We'll update you on golf and look back at the PGA Championship with our pro right here on the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. Every 2020 Tiguan S, our best-selling third-row SUV, is $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months. But wait, there's more. With $299 down, you can own the Tiguan S for just $299 per month for 72 months at 0% APR. Not just one at this price, over 22 Tiguans to choose from. All $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months and $299 down, $299 per month. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, we are so desperate for used cars that we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not. We need your trade more, so we'll flat out give you more. And don't worry about your credit. Our lenders are more lenient than ever. So if you're interested in saving $3,500 on a new Volkswagen Tiguan S and owning it for $299 down, $299 per month, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth, and you're listening to my friends JB and Goldwater.
All right, 136. This is the final segment of the afternoon here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by our friends at Stokes Volkswagen. As Darren loves to sing in his sleep, peace and love.
That's
it's
right.
Stokes VW, Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com.
By the way, if you want to take part in a contest, win, I believe, $250, you can go to Stokes Volkswagen. You got to be in the showroom with a mask. Take a picture of yourself, a little selfie with your mask on in the showroom, and then submit it through the social media channels, I believe. But you could win $250. So if you happen to be there on Ashley Phosphate, pop in, wear your mask, win some money.
So you just
and buy a car.
You just tag it, right?
Yeah.
Tags at Stokes Volkswagen.
Yes.
And then you're qualified.
There you
win $250.
But you got to be in the showroom. Yep.
It's a nice showroom.
It is.
By the way, Gamecock wide receiver transfer Jalen Brooks has been officially added to the roster, but he's not officially eligible yet by the NCAA. I'm just going to say this before we get Scott Glaze in here. With everybody that is eligible to play these days, if this kid for some reason is not eligible in 2020, Ray Tanner should drive his car to Indianapolis, grab a couple of those protesters, borrow their bricks, and throw them through the window of the NCAA headquarters.
I know most Gamecock fans have never seen Jalen Brooks play. He can
play.
He played at Wingate. He was in a D2 program and then tried to go play out at Tarleton State, which is now FCS. Now he's coming over here. His coach at Wingate is Frank Reich's brother. Do I have that right?
Frank Reich?
Wait. Maybe it is Frank Reich, and he is the brother of the Colts coach.
Okay. Either way.
Yes. But anyway, great bloodlines, and I've seen him play a couple times, and he can play. And he was under excellent leadership there at Wingate.
All right. Well, if he's not eligible, the NCAA should be ashamed of them. They should be ashamed of themselves anyways. But not Scott. Not Scott, never. No. If you want to see good hair, cut on your computer screen now. Scott Glaze, he's the golf pro out at Stono Ferry, stonoferrygolf.com on the banks of the Stono River. Before we jump him in here, Harold Varner III, one of my new favorite golfers, 8 under today, 62 in Greensboro at the Wyndham Championship. He is 3 shots ahead of Gamecock Wesley Bryan. That damn Harold Varner, get out of the way so we can get one of the Gamecocks up there. But they are currently in the lead at the Wyndham Championship. Webb Simpson, amongst others, is at 4 under. And now Scott Glaze can have the floor. Hey, man.
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, shout out to HV3 and to Wesley, some former Tar Heel Tour and Hooters Tour alum. I've teed it up with those guys a good bit in the past, especially Wesley. Grew up playing golf with Wesley. Excited to see them at the top of the leaderboard. What makes HV3 even cooler, he's sponsored by the Jordan brand. So he's the only golfer out there with the Jumpman on his hat, shoes, polos, all that stuff. So scorching hot card today with 62, but still buzzing from last week with PGA Championship. We've had some great golf recently.
All right, look, before we go, we'll go backwards. But before we do, have you ever played golf with Wesley Bryan before?
Yeah, oh yeah. Lots of times.
Okay, so you played with him and his brother then, right?
Yes. Yeah, George and I are the same age and grew up playing junior golf, South Carolina Junior Golf Association stuff all the time. And Wesley a couple years younger, and he was always like the younger kid that was competing with the older kids. And you always knew he was going to be really good, and now he's showing that on tour.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, maybe you'll be joining him in the PGA Championship in Kiowa next May, Scott. Maybe you two will land on the same grouping one morning. How about that?
Hey, that'd be nice. That'd be a good little story for somebody to pick up if that happens.
You know what?
I bet you don't care who you're paired with if you're teeing off there on Thursday morning.
Yeah, if that was the case, I wouldn't care at all. I'd just be trying to feel my fingers as I'd pull the club back.
Hey, you and I better go ahead and get our autograph from Scott before he big leagues us. Once he gets in that PGA Championship, we're never going to see him again.
No, then he's Paul Feinbaum's.
Yeah, he's the next Feinbaum. He's out of here. He's the Feinbaum of golf.
I won't pull a Feinbaum on you guys.
No, you got more hair than him. Better hair for sure.
Yeah, that's true. At least I got that going for me.
That's right. All right, so obviously the Wyndham, and it's an important week. Just kind of gave you what the leaderboard looks like. But let's go back to last week. I mean, that's what everybody really wants to talk about here. I mean, man, you know what a championship. I think Colin Morikawa. I mean, the greatest final two rounds of golf ever in a major, a 65 and then a 64 to win it. 16, that drive on 16, we'll remember that forever. I'm going to sit here and assess his play. I think it assessed itself, but assess it from the standpoint of immaturity on the tour. I mean, he's a youngster out there, and he's up against Jason Day and Bryson and Tony Finau and Dustin Johnson and Paul Casey. All these guys have been around a while, and this dude just ran them off the road. It was awesome.
Yeah, he really kicked in the door on that 16th hole right there. I mean, that took something. That took a lot of something to hit that tee shot that he did in that moment. But I think what was more impressive than that great tee shot was then just burying the putt dead center. And kudos to CBS. I don't give CBS is hard to give kudos on in golf coverage, in my opinion, but they had a great shot right there of him draining that putt, and that was him just kicking in the door. It was basically over after that. My takeaways, just in a nutshell, from Harding Park, it was a great course. We have a great champion. I've been telling everybody, watch out for Colin Morikawa. You're going to know his name for a long time. He was not my pick, unfortunately, but a very worthy champion. Thrilling golf, especially on Saturday and Sunday. We had so many guys potentially on Sunday. At one point, it was looking like we could have a 7-person playoff. Would have been hard to socially distance themselves in a 7-man playoff, I believe. But Colin came through. It was really exciting. You had a lot of great names there. I think a big theme was Dustin Johnson. I don't think he lost the tournament. He flat out got beat.
Yep.
What's interesting with DJ, he is now 0 for 4 in majors where he's held the 54-hole lead. This is also his second runner-up finish in a row at the PGA Championship. First person to do that since Jack Nicklaus in 1963 and 1964. I thought Brooks Koepka had very interesting sound bites all week and the shade that he was throwing. And what was scary was watching the big boy, Bryson, that I don't think he looked his best. He could look a lot better, and he still finally cracked a top 10 in a major. And finally, it was the disappearing acts that we had of Rory, JT, and Spieth, and not really much noise from Tiger that we would have liked. So, I mean, I think that's a good kind of synopsis of the week. But Colin Morikawa, I think it is a testament to the state of golf in the United States and around the world. It is a huge testament to successful college golf programs. Colin spent 4 years at Cal Berkeley, which is a very successful program, but we're also seeing it with guys like Scotty Scheffler, who competed last weekend, Matt Wolff, who also made a run. So Scotty Scheffler played at Texas. Matt Wolff played at Oklahoma State. Victor Hovland also played at Oklahoma State. A lot of big names that we have seen. Will Gordon was the name that popped up at the Travelers. He played at Vanderbilt. What we're seeing is that in these team aspects, they are really diving into the stats, embracing the stats, and embracing course and game management, so that these guys that are at the top of the top, the cream of the crop of college golf, the learning curve is almost not even there anymore. They can bust onto the scene and start winning golf tournaments and start winning major championships right away. This was the 28th start for Colin Morikawa. I'm going to go through, I've got him here, the stats for Jack Nicklaus through his first 28 starts. He had 3 wins. He had 1 major championship. He had 16 top 10s, and his stroke average was 71. Tiger Woods, through his first 28 professional starts, 6 wins, 1 major, 14 top 10s, and a 69.4 stroke average. Finally, Colin Morikawa, and now his 28th professional start, has 3 wins, 1 major, 10 top 10s, and a 69.1 stroke average. So, like I've said before, he's going to be here to stay. I'm not ready to crown him as the next greatest thing, but early on in his career, I went back and looked and saw what Rory did in his first 28 starts, and it was not nearly those type of numbers. And Rory is one of the biggest stars in the game right now. Brooks didn't compare. It wasn't even close. DJ, not close. I mean, this guy's really doing some stuff right out of the gate, and that all came to fruition last week. And if you didn't know the name Colin Morikawa, you certainly know it now. He was also the first player to ever win in the strokes gained era, which started in 2003, to win while leading the field in driving accuracy, proximity to the hole, so that is the distance in which you hit it to the hole. He hit it closer than everybody did all week, and he led in strokes gained putting. So he led in those 3 categories. First to ever do that and go on to win the golf tournament, and just proof that he golfed his ball all week long, and a well-deserved victory.
I mean, wow, you're unbeatable if you're leading the field in fairways hit closest to the hole and strokes gained putting. I mean, you can't possibly lose at that point.
I don't think.
You always have to try to lose at that point. I think that shows how great the golf tournament was, is that he didn't run away and hide by any means. I mean, he had to have a great weekend of shooting 65, 64, and that 129 number is the lowest ever, 36-hole total to finish off a major championship. So it really impressive golf, and he's going to have a very exciting career to watch.
Let's get into this. You mentioned this a minute ago, and this Brooks Koepka, DJ, Rory situation. The first question with that is, is this good for golf? I mean, we haven't heard much about it since. I mean, it was Brooks making kind of an offhand comment about Dustin Johnson, the fact he'd only won 1 major, and then McIlroy is the one who kind of defended him, and I think kind of fired back with it's kind of hard to knock a guy who's got 21 wins on the tour, which is 3 times what Brooks has, but of course, Koepka's going, yeah, but I've won 4 majors. But, is this something that's good for golf? I mean, I kind of was under the understanding that at least these 3 individuals here were on good terms on and off the course, but maybe that's not so. I don't know. But what is your take on this entire situation?
Yeah, I did think that was a nice little clapback from Rory there, saying that the DJ's won, 3 times as many times as Brooks has won. It did also come out earlier that Brooks said that he and DJ weren't really friends like the media portrayed. If there's anybody that I think it would be pretty impossible to troll like that, it would be Dustin Johnson. The guy has probably a resting heart rate in about the 20s. I don't think there's really too much that gets him going, and I think Brooks would kind of be barking up the wrong tree. Someone said it great on the coverage, or maybe on Golf Channel post round. It might have been Justin Leonard that's saying he is bringing contact sport mentality to a non-contact sport, is what Brooks is trying to do. And he's said before that he doesn't really like golf. He wished that he was playing baseball or another sport instead. He just kind of was the best at golf. Kudos to Rory and his comments and what he said, and kind of defending Dustin and defending really any major champion, and saying that if you have won a major championship, you're a phenomenal golfer, and no one can take that away from you, regardless of the other accolades in your career. I think Brooks, the more that I see it, and the more that he was doing it with Bryson, the big boy there, kind of making comments about him during the week. I think Brooks is doing it to try to motivate himself more than anything. I think it's something that gets him going, to try to create that bulletin board material. Didn't work out for him. What's interesting is this is the third straight final round 74 that Brooks has shot in a major championship. The first one actually came at the 2019 PGA Championship, where he ended up winning. He had such a huge lead. The next one was the Open Championship, and then he shot 74 here at the PGA. So not a good way to finish up when he seemingly was going to be the guy to beat going into Sunday, especially with his track record. So I don't know what to take of it. I think it's good for people, maybe the casual fans, that need that kind of rivalry and a little bit of a trash talk to get them interested in the game. But it's really, in my opinion, not the true spirit of the game, at least not to be done outwardly through the media and in public comments.
No question. Yeah. All right, real quick before we get to Stono Ferry, if you can do this in less than a minute, I'd appreciate it. Your take last week on Tiger Woods.
Hard to talk about Tiger in less than a minute, but I can do it.
Yeah.
He showed in the first round, in the last round, he looked like normal Tiger. His putting was not his best. I think the weather was just tough on him, tough on his back. And I was glad that he fought to make the cut there, and then he had a good Sunday and didn't embarrass himself by any means. But I don't think that course setup with the weather and whatnot was going to be one that plays into his hands to win another major championship. So good showing, and he got some reps under his belt as we head into the playoffs and into these next two majors.
Do we think he'll keep the same longer putter? I mean, he finally started to roll a couple in there on Sunday.
I don't think so. I think when it's all said and done, the issues with his back in cooler weather, the putter was a little bit longer so that it would not be as strenuous on his back. I think he goes back to Old Faithful pretty quickly.
Yeah, speaking of Old Faithful, Tiger's going to win the Masters this year without any patrons on the course. So just as an FYI to all of our viewers and listeners out there.
Hope you're right.
All right, StonoFerryGolf.com is where you will go to book your tee times, to set up any type of instruction you'd like to get from Scott Glaze, and also to take a view of the golf course, Scotty. And this week we are on, I think, number 8, right?
Number 8, last par 5 on the front 9. And this hole is named Gauntlet, and rightfully so. It is a gauntlet. You are basically threading the needle the entire hole. From the back tees, it plays 524 yards. So it is a little bit longer than the 5th hole, which is the other par 5 on the front 9. It's less penal in terms of hazards and things that can potentially trip you up off of the tee. Is a little longer. And from the front tee, it's 383 yards. And like I say, every week we have 9 different tees, once you count in combo tees, so we can accommodate any skill level out here at Stono Ferry. So from the tips, I find it interesting that at about that 280 to 200 or 300 yard mark from the back tees, you kind of fly the ball into an upslope. So you're not going to get much roll. So the big hitters can't benefit from an even bigger drive to be able to have a shorter shot into the green and take advantage of the par 5. Like I said, you have to thread the needle on this hole. There is a bunker in play about 250 off the tee, off to the right, that can swallow up a golf ball, but you do have out of bounds left and you have out of bounds right, and that's going to continue the duration of the hole. So you have to keep the ball in play here. If you have a big miss, you're more than likely going to be re-teeing and then hitting your third shot. So Once we're in the fairway, hopefully, we then come into a slightly elevated green that's protected by 2 bunkers on the right, 1 bunker on the left. It's very hard to run the ball up onto this green, which makes it difficult because coming into a par 5, we're coming in with longer clubs, even fairway woods. So the green is 25 yards deep by 25 yards wide. It's pretty spherical there, and it has some casual, slight undulation to it. It's not the most severe on the green, but the bunkers on the right do protect the right side there, and that's a good place to set a pin to have some defense. You do not want to go long here. The green, like I said, is elevated. If you go long, you have a very difficult pitch shot coming back to the green that's going to be sloping away from you. And the back of the green starts to get a little more severe there. So you're going to have to do some good work, probably hit a nice short iron into the green in order to have a good birdie look and an easy par, maybe even take a have to get up and down out of the bunker or around the green then for your longer players in order to try and make a birdie. But if you can keep the ball in play and keep it straight, you're going to be able to walk away without too much damage.
StoneO'FerryGolf.com in the original Hollywood, South Carolina. That is where you can book your tee times and your instruction, and you can get gift cards, and you can check out real estate in the area. You can check out memberships to the Stone O'Ferry Golf Club. And, of course, you can see the golf course by clicking on the little golf link up there and just clicking on golf course. It'll show you, give you a flyover, essentially, of the entire course that runs along the banks of the Stono River. The former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year is one of our favorites to tee off on here in the Low Country and in the state of South Carolina. And this man will tell you how to do it. Scott Glaze on Twitter, @ScottGlaze. Scotty, thank you so much, brother. Enjoy a good weekend of golf with the Wyndham playing up in Greensboro. And we look forward to speaking with you next Thursday, okay?
Absolutely. For the record, I'm picking Kiz this week, Kevin Kisner.
Oh, yeah, we didn't ask you.
Yeah. You got to get back on the right track. I mean, one miss is unacceptable.
Yeah.
2 is.
Hey, now Xander did have a top 10 last week.
He did.
So it wasn't, all is not lost, but we're going with Kiz this week. Local guy playing somewhat close to home. Got to be a really good ball striker. So it should be an exciting weekend. Looking forward to it.
He better have a hell of a day because Harold Varner did 8 under 62 round 1. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll see you.
There you go. Scott Glaze joining us from Stone O'Ferry. Always a wonderful segment with him. He is so good when it comes to this golf stuff.
Yep.
All right. What's good today? What is today? National Day calendar. We'll finish the show with this. 3 days today. And what day is it? Everybody's favorite segment. It's National Prosecco Day.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, not all the time, but okay.
How about National Filet Mignon Day?
Yeah. That can be
every day.
Every day. Absolutely every day.
Every day. And this is a cool one. I love this day. National Left-Handers Day.
Are you a lefty? You're not a lefty.
All right.
Yeah, you're a catcher. You're not a lefty.
Yeah. No, hell no.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts when I see youth baseball and they run a little left-handed catcher out there. I'm like, oh, be trying to lose.
It's youth baseball. Give the kid a shot, man.
God. What? He's never going to catch as a lefty.
That's
going to be over.
True. Put him at first.
Who's your favorite lefty ever in the game of baseball? Let's just say left-handed pitcher.
Oh, well, left-handed. When I think left-handed, I think Chipper Jones' left-handed swing is one of the sweetest things I've ever seen. Griffey's was beautiful as well. I mean, Griffey's was gorgeous. Left-handed pitcher, let's go Patrick Corbin, the world champion.
Okay.
Patrick Corbin.
Yeah, when I think of left-handed, like who was the most dominating lefty I ever saw?
Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a phone call? Do we have a phone call?
No. Somehow.
They're 2 hours late.
I don't know what that was, and I don't know how it came through because it's not supposed to.
Maybe an alarm or something.
No, it was some type of phone call, but yeah, whatever.
Kind of out of the blue here, of course, as we go to our final break of the day, which means the show's over. But according to Matt Baker with the Tampa Bay Times, Florida State President John Thrasher says the ACC presidents are meeting at 4:30 today, and he thinks it will be the final decision on whether to play.
It can't be. Well, if it's the final decision, the only possible decision is calling it off because we've got.
Where did this come from?
We've got 6 weeks here. If it's the final decision, that's the only possible way.
Yeah, that doesn't make. Yeah, and where did it? Where did this come from? I mean, it just kind of flew out of left field, right? I thought we were in wait and see mode, right? Isn't that what we were under the impression?
What it seems like. Still no word from the Southern Conference yet as to what they are going to do. The presidents are meeting this afternoon. Samford is going to issue a statement on where they stand. I would imagine that'll happen after the Southern Conference issues its statement. But right now it does appear as though there is a split amongst the league. Some want to play, some don't. It would not surprise me the least to see a very similar thing that the Big South did. We're done, but if you want to go get X number of non-conference games, go try.
Yeah, and we'll see if you start getting one of these. If you get one of these 3 Power 5s that was planning to move forward, if all of a sudden they cancel, that then you're really talking about a trickle-down effect. It leagues like the SoCon, and it's just.
I think 3 is the number for the Power. I don't think 2 hang on.
Probably not. So we'll see. 4:30 today. All eyes on the ACC. All of a sudden.
Yeah.
Guess what? That just threw tomorrow into a major loop again on the JB and Goldwater show. So more work to do, Darren. Thanks to Corey McCartney, Brian Levinson, and Scott Glaze today. Back tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater show, driven by our friends at Stokes Volkswagen. Visit stokesvw.com. For Darren Goldwater and his excellent work, I am Jamie. See you tomorrow.